Doctor Dolittle by Hugh Lofting, 1920 to 2020. And I'll tell you why. Because we're going to be celebrating 100 years of Doctor Dolittle very soon in 2020. So in this video we're going to learn about Hugh Lofting himself, Doctor Dolittle, these 100 years, how to get some books for free, and character study of Cheapside the Sparrow. So the thing is, with Hugh Lofting, who was born in 1886, and I'll fast track right down here to Robert Downey Jr. and Dolittle, the movie, which comes out February 2020, and that's where we get the 100 years, but it's worth looking at where the original stories came from. So for an example, Hugh Lofting as a Englishman was born in 1886, he died in 47 and he was 61. At the age of 34 he published a story called The Story of Doctor Dolittle. Now many things have been made, radio plays, theatre, TV, and you may remember, or younger viewers may not remember, 1967 was the Rex Harrison movie with lots of singing, talk like an animal, walk like an animal, that sort of thing. Then we had Eddie Murphy, of course, in 98 with Dolittle 1, 2, and then Kyla Pratt in, I think it was his daughter, wasn't it, in the thing, which was another Dolittle. Those are the three movies, and then here's the trailer for the new movie coming up, which was going to be called The Voyages of Doctor Dolittle, that's now just shortened to Dolittle. You can look at the trailer for that, I'm sure, if not seen it already. So look, here's the thing. I'm a previous school teacher, so therefore I used to teach English amongst other things. So for me personally, as a writer and also as somebody who wants to just be curious about the world, let's have a little delve into this, of how it all got started. Hugh Lofting was a man born in 1886. Now, the bits I'm going to highlight in yellow. Dolittle first appeared in Lofting's illustrated letters to his children, written from the British Army trenches in World War I. So look at this. He was a civil engineer who was an army soldier who was in those trenches. Can't even imagine the sort of stuff. However, we will see that when he was not wishing to write to his children about the brutality of the war, he wrote imaginative letters, and which later became the foundation of the successful Doctor Dolittle novels for children. Now what we'll see here is that the actual news that was going on, shall we say, that he was thinking about writing to his children, was either too horrible, as you can really imagine, or too dull. So hence the third party, I guess, of creating this character, Dr. John Dolittle, who was an English physician from Puddleby-on-the-Marsh in the West Country in England, who could speak to animals. That's a little bit of the background. So let's get on to the free part of the books, because for me, if I had one message, I would say get right back to the beginning and try and read the books to see what it was like. Yes, I'm sure that you can watch a ton of movies, including the one next time, but for me, having recently, on another project, before I heard about the 2020 movie, I've read The Story of Doctor Dolittle, The Voyages, which is the current movie thing, I think, but I don't know the exact plot, and I'm halfway through Doctor Dolittle's Post Office, and they are most amazing things. So Project Gutenberg, if you do not know, is a website that's been going that offers books for free which are outside of copyright. So therefore, if you search Hugh Lofting, we get these three turn up, actually a fourth one, which is The Story of Doctor Dolittle, which is a audio book by the looks of it. When you click on them, you get quite a brilliant HTML version where it's no downloading, you just read it straight away. We've got EPUBs, we've got Kindles, we've got plain text, and I think there's the possibility of more files. 1, 2, 3, and there you go. That's what it looks like there. I will illustrate on mobile as well. Before I do that, there is a website I keep using at the moment called readinglength.com or whatever it's called, and we can see that the story of Dr. Dolittle is 23,000 words. So if you read it at a pace of 250 words a minute, you'd get it done in an hour and a half. Not very long, but if you can compare this to The Voyages of Doctor Dolittle, that's a much bigger book at 74,500 words. Quite an amazing way to read this thing. Okay, it's 4 hours, nearly 5 hours worth of it. If you go over to Gutenberg on mobile, really nice website. I'll put all the links in the box, which is popular, latest and random. We can do a search of Hugh Lofting, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, same as desktop, and this one going over here, clicking on the story of, then we get to scroll down and see that there is the availability of HTML, EPUBs, Kindles, etc. And then Blue Arrow goes over to say that if I clicked on the HTML, we get the old school cover, we get the illustrations, by the way, from Hugh Lofting himself, and there is the first chapter, by the way. Once upon a time, many years ago, when our grandfathers were little children, there was a doctor. Then we can go over and have a look as a final thing, which for me is looking at the language, because I'll be honest, I've read a ton of books, as I'm sure I have done, as we all have done in the past, and some are huge books. Think of the 1,000,000 words or so of the 7 Harry Potters. If we go down and look at some of this, it is quite frightening in a majorly good way. How, for me, hardly any words on the page, hardly any description, brings out this vast, vast landscape that Hugh Lofting talks about with Doctor Dolittle. And I'll give you this example here about Cheapside the Sparrow. So for reference, it's from the Voyage of Doctor Dolittle. It's the 9th chapter. And when breakfast was over, Doctor took me out to show me the garden. Well, if the house had been interesting, the garden was 100 times more so. Going down to this part here, let's have a look. Well, I suppose it's because they get the kind of food they like and nobody worries or disturbs them. Then, of course, they know. And if their children become sick, what I'm getting to is, look, they find it handy to be in a doctor's garden. Look, see that sparrow on the sundial swearing at the blackbird down below? Well, he's been coming here for years. He comes from London. The country sparrows round here are always laughing at him. They say he chirps with such a Cockney accent. He's the most amusing bird, very brave but cheeky. He loves nothing better than argument, but he always ends up by getting rude. He's a real city bird in London. He lives around St Paul's Cathedral, Cheapside, we call him. Then it goes on, which I found quite interesting, because later in the book you see that this is actually page 55, this is 58, and then this is 127. Going down, and all I'm really illustrating, if you get that far, is to have a look, because let's look at the language, really simplistic language in a nice way. That mischievous making sparrow Cheapside insulting her as soon as she came into the garden. Well, I arrived on the scene. She was in tears and was turning round and going straight back to Brazil tonight. I had the hardest work persuading her to wait. She's in the study. I shut Cheapside in one of the bookcases and I told him, My point here is, quite honestly, read in a rush, is look at the real life. Cheapside, if you do not know, when he says, this is Hugh Lofting in the book, that he comes from near St Paul's Cathedral, if you're a budding writer, then what can you relate back to the real world? In other words, we've got St Paul's here, this road at the back here, which I'm just highlighting down here, is actually Cheapside. It made me chuckle because I knew instantly that Cheapside was a place, because I've been there, walked through there quite a few times. Look, that was a highlight into the references, which I'll put in the box, and really about 5 things. Hugh Lofting himself, how he got started with Doctor Dolittle, the celebration of 100 years, and also the books for free, which you can get, and a little insight read quite badly by me about Cheapside the Sparrow. So, Doctor Dolittle by Hugh Lofting, 1920-2020.